Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the MDI Survey Administrator Training webinar. And I think all of you are very familiar now with the Zoom webinar format. I'd like you all to please stay muted, but if you would like to ask questions or interact with us or one of our team members, you can anytime use the chat function or the question and answer function, and one of our team members will attend to your questions either right away if it's an issue, or maybe some of the questions will be responded to further to the end of the webinar. My name is Dr. Eva Oberla. I'm an associate professor with HELP in SPPH at UBC, and I'm the principal investigator of the MDI Research to Action project. I'm really happy to welcome you all here to this webinar today, and we will together guide you through different steps of the MDI administration. But I'd like to first start by acknowledging that HELP's work at UBC Vancouver campus takes place on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. The Musqueam have been the rightful caretakers of this land for millennia, and we're very grateful for being able to be on their land. So many of you are joining from other territories today, and you're very welcome to share with us in the chat whose land you're joining us from today. We're very excited to have a large number of schools joining us today in the MDI project. We have about 34 school districts, and that of course means a lot of schools, almost 42,000 potential children will be joining us. Depends of course how many participate. Some of you are very familiar with the MDI already. Some of you have participated in this project over the past few years and just need a little refresher today. And for others, there's a lot of new information about the project today. So please don't hesitate to ask questions during the webinar. You can also ask questions at any time after the webinar. Just send us an email afterwards. We're always happy to be there and support. And just very briefly, what we'll be covering today. I'm here for the first 15 minutes or so. I'll be providing a quick refresher of the MDI project, and then I will pass it over to my colleagues, and they will be looking at the steps to administer the MDI in your schools. So they will really go through all the nitty-gritty details of how to get from the general idea of having signed on to do the MDI to actual implementation in your schools. And at the very end, we'll also be having some time to look at the MDI resources that are available to you during the process and that you can access also later on when you actually get your data, your MDI data, which is the very exciting part of the project, of course. Today, we're focusing only on the MDI, but please note that this is part of a larger monitoring system project at the Human Early Learning Partnership. The monitoring system spans from the early years of childhood to later adolescence, and it captures experiences, developmental health, and well-being through the perspectives of children, youth, parents, and educators. So really the human development program of research that we have at HELP has many different components. The earlier tools, they're completed by parents and by teachers because they assess the development and the experience of younger children. The MDI, however, is implemented in grades 4 to 8, and that's one of our self-report tools. And that's where we can really learn directly from children about their feelings, about their experiences, and really having a chance here to give children a voice in this project. So what is the MDI? The MDI is a self-report survey. It's completed by children in grades 4 to 8. Why grades 4 to 8? Well, this is really a time, roughly between the ages 9 and 13. It's a time of transition for children, a transition in development. We know that this time is associated with increased risks, but also it provides lots of opportunities to make a difference in children's lives. These ages are particularly important to be able to prevent problems before they arrive. So it's a great time for intervention and for health and well-being promotion. So many researchers have really coined this term of window of opportunity for early adolescence because it is a time when so many changes occur, physical, social, emotional. Lots of children during that time are transitioning to other schools. And it is a time when we can really make sure that we build systems and we build schools and environments for children that protect and promote well-being. A common question that we get on a very regular basis is, are these answers, responses we get from children to the questions that we have on the MDI actually reliable? Should we really trust that children know what they're responding to here? And there's a lot of research that has been done on that, and previous research has found that the responses of children in grades 4 and above are as reliable and as valid as responses from adults. So researchers have really argued that if we want to learn about the way children feel and about how day-to-day experiences feel for children, we need to go and ask them directly. The MDI is about 1.5 decades old now, approximately. So it really has been running for a while in British Columbia, but also in many other provinces by now. And the MDI was developed by a UBC research team that was led by Dr. Shonard Reichel in 2009. The MDI was developed not just by researchers, but no, it was a research project that directly came from the community. So we had input from children, from parents, from teachers, from community groups, including the United Way of the Lower Mainland. And during that process, the questions were assembled from surveys that were previously used and validated with children. Now, because society changes and the children have different experiences in society over the years, the topics change. Just think about things like screen time, think about the COVID-19 pandemic. So all of these changes in society have also changed the topics that children are confronted with on a day-to-day basis. And because of that, we regularly revise the MDI to make sure that the questions that we ask are still relevant to children and capture their today's experience in society that are important for their well-being. As I mentioned earlier, the MDI is unique in its way that it reflects the voices of the children. Their input gives us the data that we couldn't actually get in any other way. Their thoughts, their feelings, their daily routines. And the MDI also tells children, it gives them this feedback that what they believe and what they have to say really matters to us, that we will want to learn from them, and that their answers can actually help shape the communities and the contexts and settings that they're a part of. So lots of children tell us that they feel very empowered by being able to provide this feedback to us and share with us how they're doing. The self-report nature on the MDI is something that upholds the Article 12 of the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child. And this is something that is really important to us when it was really important for us when we designed the MDI project. Keep in mind that the MDI is a population-based survey, which really means that it only tells us about the groups, the neighborhoods, the schools, the broader geographic regions. It's not an individual tool. It's not something that will be used or can be even used for diagnostic purposes. So the goal here is really to have data that we can aggregate and then track over time to see population trends in children's well-being. So it's never used to evaluate teachers or to evaluate schools. This is not the purpose how it was developed. Why is the MDI important? Well, the MDI allows us to see trends in children, in how children are doing over time. The MDI results can provide educators, parents, researchers, community organizations, and policymakers with information about the social world, the psychological experiences of children during middle childhood. And it's actionable. So the findings are actionable. Schools can actually take their school reports. They can compare how they are doing or how their children are doing on certain measures compared to other children in the district, because you're provided with your own data and you always have the district mean as a comparison. And then you can use that data in order to identify the areas of strength in your school and areas of growth where you feel like where you want to maybe develop some strategies or put in some interventions to make a change. So this is really why we developed the MDI with a goal to provide information back to schools so that they can actually take the data into their own hands and use it. There are a few really central themes in the MDI that I want to highlight here. One central theme is the social relationships. So we ask quite a few questions about children's relationship with peers, children's relationship with adults in the school, home, and the community. And we do this because we know that the relationships children experience every day are important for their healthy development, for their social and emotional well-being. And also this includes some questions that we have on their pro-social behaviors and on coping skills. The relationships and the connections that children experience with peers, but also at home and in their school and community with adults, are really a key measure that we have. And I'll walk you through that a little bit later when we talk about the different indices that are included when you get your MDI data back. The MDI is, in a way, we really try with the MDI to capture the whole child, like all the experiences that children have in their day-to-day life. And I think this is one of the things that makes it quite unique and different from other assessments that often focus on one specific aspect of a child's life. So this holistic view allows us to get insight into areas that have great significance for children's lives. Not just academic progress, not just one particular aspect of development, for example, physical health or physical activity. But no, we really look at children's experiences at school, but also in their family, in their neighborhood. We ask them about their out of school time. We ask them about their social well-being, their emotional well-being. And more recently, we also have other measures, for example, their feelings and experiences about the climate, what they're concerned about in terms of changes of the climate and the environment. There are 5 dimensions that we measure on the MDI, and these dimensions represent areas of development that are strongly linked to well-being, to academic achievement, and to health. And if you're interested in learning more, we do have lots of additional material that explains each of these dimensions and why we chose them on our website. So you're welcome to either go and comb through our website, or you can also reach out and ask us to point you to certain specific resources. And I want to jump into one of the indices that I'd like to just briefly explain to you here. And again, we have this information in a written form online, but I'd like to already kind of prepare you a little bit of what you're going to be seeing in your reports later on. So in the end of the MDI project in the spring, there are 2 big pieces of information available to you. One of them contains your school report, which is your school's data aggregated at the school level. And your report also contains the information about the district average. And the district average is the data of all the children at the children's age group aggregated at the district level. And that always allows you to compare for your school how the children in your school are doing regarding a certain measure, regarding a certain construct compared to others in the district. The school reports show you the results for each of the MDI dimensions. And they also give you, however, some 2 big summary measures. And the summary measures, I think, are really important because sometimes it's a bit hard to go through every single measure and then try to evaluate each of these measures separately. That's why we summarize some of these measures for you. And one of these indices is the well-being index. So the well-being index combines 5 different measures. It combines 5 measures that are highly indicative of either positive well-being or the absence of negative well-being. So, for example, one of the measures in the well-being index is happiness, or also referred to as subjective well-being. So this measures includes items that measure how content, how satisfied children are with their own lives. It's a very important part of positive emotional well-being. Children who report to be happy, for example, are more likely to attract positive attention from peers, from adults. They often have more social resources available in their life, and it's also strengthened their resilience and coping skills. Another measure that is a part of the well-being index is general health. This includes physical health, but also other forms of health, for example, mental health. So we really ask them in general to describe their health. It includes optimism, having a positive mindset, positive expectations of the future. It includes self-esteem, a positive view of oneself, a sense of self-worth. And it includes the absence of sadness. So what we do here is we use items that measure sadness, and we reverse them because we assume that the absence of sadness is also one aspect of positive well-being. Then we combine these 5 measures into a summary index, and we develop cutoffs which allow us to see which are the children who are high on well-being, so we consider them thriving. These are the proportion of children who report positive responses on at least 4 measures of well-being and no negative responses. Then there are the children who report medium well-being. This is the proportion of children who are reporting less than 4 positive responses and no negative responses, and children who report low well-being. This is the group of children who report negative responses on at least one of the 5 measures of well-being. So schools and districts who participate on a regular basis in the MDI, they can actually track changes in well-being among the children over the years. And they can use the well-being index to monitor changes from year to year. They can, for example, implement an intervention or implement different strategies, and then compare the well-being index before and after these strategies if they participate in subsequent years to see if anything has changed regarding the well-being of children in their school. They can also see if children from different age groups, if schools that participate with different age groups can see if the well-being of children differs across the different age groups, which is also something that we frequently see. So that's one of the key measures I think you might want to go back to and look at in detail when you get your report. The second index I'd like to point out here, it's called the Assets Index. And the Asset Index measures key resources. So key resources that are presented in a child's life and that can help promote the positive development and well-being of children. And the Asset Index, again, provides summative information on children's social relationships. For the social relationships, we have 2 different assets. One of them is the adult relationship asset. This combines relationships with adults at school, in the neighborhood, and at home, and the peer relationship asset. The peer relationship asset combines children's relationships, children's sense of peer belonging and their experiences of friendship, intimacy, like having a close friend you can really trust and you can really be close to. The out of school time index, the out of school time asset is an asset which indicates to what extent or which of the children are actually participating in organized, structured out of school time activities. For those schools who have participated in the MDI over several years, keep in mind that the out of school time questions changed in 2022-23. So if you compare previous years to your current year, you really should be taking this into account, that the form, the way we ask these questions now changes a little bit. Previously, children were asked to respond to the extracurricular activities they complete, they participate in the time frame from after school to about dinner time, and only on 5 days a week. So it was like focused on the school days, whereas now we really just want to learn from children, are you participating in extracurricular activities? And these could also be taking place during evening hours or on weekend days. So naturally, that now children are responding to this question with a much larger time frame in mind. This would also change their potential responses they're giving here. The last asset that we measure is nutrition and sleep. And this is really a question that we included because we do know that nutrition and sleep are 2 very important health behaviors. They are also important parts of lifestyle. And we know that this is an important part of well-being and has been closely related to well-being outcomes on the MDI. All of these assets and the well-being index are closely described in our resource materials. I know this was a lot of information, but I just want to prime you already a little bit regarding what you're going to be seeing. And you're going to be seeing that this is that we have several colors kind of indicating what category children fall into and what proportion of children fall into which category. Here, the little brown cube you see in the middle of this visual, it indicates the different shades of brown, and the darker the color, the richer the soil, the more children have the asset. The MDI has really grown over the last 1.5 decades. So we started out with more like a pilot study in 2009 and 10, where we only had about just over 3,000 kids. And our last year included more than 40,000 children, which is very exciting. This year, again, promises to be a big year with 34 districts and about 42,000 children are eligible to participate. So we'll have to see how the participation rates are this year. As you know, parents always have the right to withdraw their child if they choose for their child not to participate. And all of these details, this is something that the MDI team is going to be speaking a little bit more to now in the subsequent slides. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Ava. And again, welcome to everybody. So I'm sure everybody can see my screen. So we're now going to look at the second part of our webinar, which is looking at the steps to MDI administration in your schools. And just a couple of key messages before we start with that. The privacy of children, families, and teachers is paramount. So this means all information that is collected is kept confidential and used for statistical purposes only. The information is kept at help, and personal identifiers are also stripped from the data. So this means no child or teacher is ever identified in our reporting. Participation is voluntary for teachers, parents, and students. So parents or guardians receive information letters at least 2 weeks prior to survey administration. And this outlines in details all of the details that they need to know when they participate or when their children participate in the MDI. And using this letter, or once they receive this letter, they can choose to withdraw their child either by contacting the classroom teacher or returning the withdrawal form to the classroom teacher. So if you're familiar with the parent letter, this is usually the very last page of our parent letter. And parents are also able to email us directly if they would like to withdraw their child from the survey. Students may also opt out at any time, even after they have completed the survey. There's an assent script that is read out loud at the beginning of the survey, and this outlines all of these options for the students. We also make sure that there's a withdrawal button at the very bottom of each of the pages of the survey so that the kids can just click on this button if they would like to withdraw from the survey. To also assist with providing information to parents and also answering questions that they may have, we have a parent FAQ page for most commonly asked questions. And it's a really great resource, of course, not just for parents. If you'd also like to learn more about the MDI, it's also very helpful for school staff, for principals, or for your school community. But of course, if parents have further questions about the MDI, they can also email us directly. And I'm sure Amanda will be able to help put this link into the chat. One resource that we have that might be good and handy for January is our MDI questions brief. So this resource summarizes all of the question topics on the MDI, and it also includes links to additional resources. So we recommend that you distribute this to parents in January as a reminder of the upcoming MDI administration. So it really has two purposes. So number one, it gives parents more information about the MDI and the kind of questions that we ask. We have heard from parents in the past that they would like to be prepared for the questions that their kids might come home with. So this brief describes some of those questions and also the rationale in detail. And of course, another reminder in January that the MDI survey is happening in the schools. We know that the letters go home just before Christmas break, and we learned from parents that that's really a very busy time, and it's very easy to forget all of these information. So a good reminder in January using this questions brief can't hurt. So if you have this handy, please make sure to share it so that parents are aware that the MDI might be happening in your schools. Okay, so this is just a quick look at the steps to administer the MDI. This is a part of the survey administrator timeline and checklist, and we'll go through this in detail in the next few slides. Okay, so MDI administration steps. To make this a little bit easier, I tried to split this into 3 different sections. So let's look at what do you need to prepare before the day of your MDI administration. And then we'll go through the steps on the actual day of your MDI administration and just a few things to remember after you've done the MDI survey. So of course, number 1, inform your students about the MDI. So we want your students to also be prepared and for them to know this is happening in their schools and when this is happening. So inform your students. Number 2, review helpful materials. So we recommend that you review our resources before the day of MDI administration. So what resources are these? And I'm sure some of you might already have this handy. You might have saved this in your desktop already. So an example would be the one that I just showed you a while ago. So we have the survey administrator checklist. So this is just a quick 1-pager that reviews all of the steps to administer the MDI. We also have the administration guide, or what we call the admin guide. And this one outlines the steps to MDI administration in more detail. So this has all the screenshots and the step-by-step instructions. If, for example, you need to maybe add a student in the system, or all of the other functions that you need to do in the eMDI system would be in this admin guide. So it's very good to have this handy. We also have the instructional survey, which is used on the day of MDI administration so that it can assist teachers and principals in guiding your students through the survey. Lastly, we also have an MDI intro video, which you can find in the homepage when you log in into the eMDI system. So all of these resources have been emailed to your MDI leads. If you need a copy, or maybe if you haven't received an email, please connect with your MDI leads, or you can also email us and we can share these resources with you. Okay, so you have the resources, you've let your students know that the MDI is happening. So the next few steps are for you to receive your password reset email and for you to log on to the eMDI system. So we recommend that you log in at least a few days before you plan to administer the survey so that you can do 2 things. Number 1, review your class lists, and number 2, so that you can print the student logins or passwords. So tomorrow, Friday, we will be sending out the password reset emails. If, for example, by the end of tomorrow, you haven't received a password reset email, you can contact us, or you can also connect with your MDI leads, and we'll make sure that you have access. If you are an independent school, I know that, of course, we have to also upload your class list in the system. So by tomorrow, if, for example, you haven't received a password reset email, it might mean we still have to set that up in the eMDI system. So please connect with us and we can make sure that everything is set up and ready for you. So this is what the email would look like when you receive it tomorrow. So there's a link that you click on so that you can put in your new password of your choice, make sure it's easy to remember. And this is what will get you logged into our eMDI system. So again, it will be sent tomorrow, and you will use your school and school district email address in order to log in. So for example, you've done this already, you know you have access and you want to log in, for example, the next day. You don't have to go back into this password reset email link. All you need to do is open your browser, type mdi.ubc.ca, and you will get into the login page. All you need to do is click on the teacher administrator login. And this is where you'll use your school or school district email address and password of your choice, so that you can get into the homepage of the eMDI system. So this is what it would look like the first time you log in. You will see a pop-up reminder regarding parent letters being sent home. So this serves really just as another reminder that parents should receive the parent letter and that they should have learned about the MDI before the survey can take place in your school. So for example, if you've sent it out already, or you know that your school administrator or your district has sent this out, please indicate the date when this has been sent out and just click on the submit button. So for example, if you haven't sent this out yet and it has served its purpose and it has reminded you that you have to send out the parent letters, there's still time, so there's no need to panic. All you need to do is prepare those letters. So for example, if you're sending it out next week, January 15, all you need to do is to count 2 weeks in between, and then you can administer the survey. So very important to remember, the parent letters should have gone home. There should have been a 2-week window from when they were sent home and when you administer the survey in your schools. If, for example, you don't know the date, the system will not dismiss you. So just click on that X button on right over here, and it will still let you log in. But of course, the reminder will keep on popping up every time you log in, just to make sure that you can fill in the date when your parent letters have gone home. We realized that that time during the winter break or before winter break is really very chaotic and busy. So it's very easy to forget to send those letters home. So what we want to avoid is that you run out of time after the break for the survey to be completed within the survey window. Okay, so now we're in the e-system. We can now do those 2 things that I just mentioned. So number 1, reviewing your class lists. So when you log in, if you notice this left-hand navigation panel that you have, the first thing that you do is make sure that you go to number 1. So that's add and withdraw students. So here you can click on your school, click on your classroom so that you can review your whole class list. So this is a good time for you to look at those saved withdrawal forms. If, for example, some of the parents have returned them to you, so this is a good time for you to withdraw those students if you need to. Or, for example, maybe you've had a new student in December and you see that they're missing from your class list. So this is also a good chance for you to add them in. So if you need to add a student, all you need to do is click on options, add student, and then fill in all of the information that is needed for the student. So their first name, their last name, their pens are also needed. So just to make sure that the pen is correct, because the system doesn't really accept duplicated pens. If ever, for example, they're transferring from another school, it might be trickier to add them in. So just email us and we can definitely help you right away. If you are a secondary school and you have grade 8s, we realized that there might be some classroom reorganization needed in order to administer the MDI to your grade 8s. We know from experience in previous years that secondary schools may want to organize their MDI according to semesters or blocks, or some have preferred in the past to have all of the students in one large classroom, maybe getting all of the students to do the survey all at once at the same time. So please connect with us by email or a phone call once you log in and you know right away how you want it to be set up. Connect with us. We have a safe and secure process for moving students and reorganizing those classrooms, and we can definitely help you with that as well. Okay, so while reviewing your class list, you might see that some of the students have already been withdrawn when you log in, right? So as help, we often also receive emails directly from parents withdrawing their children, and maybe sometimes they might not have let the teacher know. So if you see that red withdrawn button next to a student, it just means you will not be able to generate a login for them. You will not be able to add them back into your class, and they will not be able to take the survey. So if you click on that student, you will also be able to see the details of the withdrawal as well as the reason. So I think this is really very helpful, because I know from the past, we've received phone calls because it didn't really say the reason why these kids were withdrawn. So now we've added this feature, and you should be able to see this when you log into the EMDI. Okay, so once you're satisfied with your class list, it's organized according to how you want it to be organized. You're now ready to print your student logins. So what we need to do is to look again on that left-hand navigation panel on your homepage when you go to EMDI, and click on number 2 that says Unlock Survey and Print Passwords. So when you go in here, you find your school, you find your classroom, and then you will see on the right upper hand corner these 3 buttons right over here. Now, for the purposes of printing those student logins, all you need to do is to click on Print Student Logins. When you click on this, a new tab will appear, and this will show you all of your students and their login credentials for doing the MDI survey. So print this off. You can prepare this by cutting them into cards right away, so that on the day of, you just distribute this to your students to do the MDI. I know there are also some online classrooms and some online independent school classrooms who will be participating. So I guess as the teacher and as someone who's expert into using whatever online platform you're using, as long as you are sharing your logins or the students' logins in a very secure way, so maybe a secure chat function, for example, that it's not being shared with everybody, that might be the best way for you to share their individual login credentials. You can also add in there the EMDI website link so that they can also log in to do the survey. So these are all the steps that you can do ahead of time. So before I go to the next step, which is what we need to do on the day of administration, I'm just going to pause right here and see if there are any questions, or Merit, if there's anything that you feel like it's good to share in the group.
Sorry. No, I think the most comments we have had is whether or not this webinar will be recorded and if we will share the recording. And yes, we will do that. If not tomorrow, by Monday for sure. So I think those have been the main questions so far, Kim.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let me just, okay, perfect. So moving on. So we've done everything that we can do to prepare for the MDI, right? So we've told our students that we're doing it. You have the resources handy. You've now received your password for the MDI. You have accessed it. You're happy with your class list. You had time, so you already printed all of your logins and have cut it into cards. What do we need to do now on the actual day of you administering the survey? So I guess the first thing to remember is that the MDI survey usually needs 1 to 2 class periods to administer. So of course, for older grades, usually grade 7, grade 8, sometimes they don't even need the whole 1 class period. They finish really very fast. But of course, for grades 4 and 5, I think that's where you really need to allot that 2 class periods. Also, maybe at the very beginning, when you're preparing everything, allow around 10 to 15 minutes for the students to log in. Maybe some have difficulty logging in, maybe helping them type the website right away on the browser, so it's easy for them to find. So just try to allot those 2 class periods if you're administering the MDI. And we'll quickly go through the steps as well, so that we can look at them one by one. Okay, so first thing, unlock the survey. So to protect the security of those student logins, do you remember the cards that we cut out? They can only access, so the students are only able to use those login credentials if the survey has been unlocked. And a teacher, a principal, or one of us from the MDI team can also help to unlock the survey. So same thing, what do you need to do? You have to log in, mdi.ubc.ca. Go to step 2, unlock survey and print passwords. click until you get into your classroom. And when you see those three buttons right over there, it's just that blue button that says Unlock Survey. So if you click this, the survey is now open for 4 hours. So if, for example, you know that you're administering it sometime that morning, if you have some time in the morning, like early morning, because you're preparing, you can already unlock it by maybe 8 o'clock. If you know, like by 9, you'll be administering it. So it gives you a little bit of time. So it is unlocked for 4 hours. And then after that, it would automatically lock the survey. So a few questions that we get on this feature. So number one, what if the student did not finish the survey and they want to do it? They're really keen, they want to finish it the next day. So the survey usually would automatically save the page where the student left off. So if they want to do it on a different day, they definitely can. So it's very good to collect those login cards again, like after they're done, because they can use the same logins for that student in order for them to access their survey again. You can also unlock the survey as often as you need. So if one student is sick and you need to do that on a different day, one student is absent doing it on a different day, you can unlock it as often as you need, like if there are any students who want to complete the survey. So that's usually a question. If students can do it on a different time, if they did not finish, yes, they can. But yes, very important to remember that those logins will not work if this survey is not unlocked. Yes, and also this is where you can click on that preview survey. So if you want to follow along with the students and you want to see the survey for yourself, or if you want to maybe project it into the classroom, just click on that preview survey and it'll give you access to the actual MDI survey that the students are also doing. Okay, so next, of course, prepare your classroom, your computer lab, or your online classroom under test conditions. So if it's in a classroom, make sure that you have space in between students if possible. It's also good to have a classroom set of headphones available to provide headphones to students that may benefit from the read aloud function that we have in the MDI. The survey works well on either desktops in the computer lab, or laptops, tablets in the classroom, Chromebooks, iPads, and the best browser to use would be Firefox, Chrome, or Safari. So please also prepare an alternate activity related to your regular classroom activity if there are any students who are not participating in the MDI survey. We also suggest that you write the website address on the board for all to see, www.mdi.ubc.ca, or if you have time to log in all of their laptops or computers, just to go into the login page right away so that they just click on student login and then they can use their login credentials. We also recommend to inform your school counselor that the survey is taking place in case anything arises and if the student wishes to speak further with an adult in the school. Okay, so your classroom is now set up and ready. All of their laptops are in front of the kids, and you've written down the website where they need to go. So once you click on mdi.ubc.ca, it brings you into the same login page, the one that I showed you a while ago, if you need to log in. But instead of teacher administrator login, of course, for students, they have to click on student login. So when they click on this, this is where they will use those cards that you have created so that they can enter their usernames and their passwords, and they can start with the MDI survey. Right, okay, so the instructional survey, one of the resources that I mentioned, is the survey that you will use to guide your students. So it has screenshots identical to the online survey, except that it contains an assent script for you to read aloud before you start, or before they start answering the survey. So the assent script describes what the students will be doing, and it informs them that they can choose not to participate if they don't want to. So please read aloud the assent script so that the students understand the purpose of the survey, confidentiality of responses, and that their participation is voluntary. After reading the assent script aloud, begin the survey by reading aloud the questions on the demographic section. Starts with please tell us a bit about yourself, as well as the instruction sections answering the sample questions together. And then after that, the students can read the questions on their own or maybe request for assistance as needed. As I've mentioned a while ago, there's also a read aloud function in the MDI once they're doing the survey. So if you have headphones and if any students will benefit from the read aloud function, they can definitely use that as well. The instructional survey also contains tips and instructions for survey administrators throughout the document, so that if there are any questions from students, maybe you'll find some of the answers or like tips there on how to answer their questions. And at the very end of this instructional survey, we have added a more comprehensive list of the Indigenous nations and languages in Canada at the end as a reference for survey administrators to assist students in responding to the questions on First Nations, Métis, and Inuit identity and languages learned and spoken at home on the MDI. So we hope this will be a resource that you can use to support children when they're completing the demographic questions on the MDI. Just a few reminders while administering the survey to please remain neutral, refrain from having or making additional comments. If a student asks a question about a particular item that is confusing to them, please do not provide your own interpretation to the student, rather maybe rereading the question, redirecting it to the individual student. Like for example, asking them, what would you say to me if I said X, Y, and Z? To ensure privacy and confidentiality and to help your students feel that their answers are being kept private, we ask that you do not look at the students' responses on the survey while they're completing it. However, please do observe your students' behaviors to ensure that disruptions do not occur or that students do not try to look at each other's responses. Okay, so that's what you do in order to administer the MDI on the day of. Preparing your classrooms, making sure that you have those student logins, making sure that you know where they actually log in, unlocking the survey. So all of these things would be in the admin guide as well. We'll share with you some of those resources if you don't have them. And of course, if you have any questions while you're administering it, you can also email or call us so that we can assist you. Some of the things to remember or to just be aware of after you've administered the survey are these two things. So number one, which is really important, is to follow up with student help requests. So what are these help for student requests? So at the end of the survey, we have what we call the help for student page. So the MDI asks some rather personal questions like how they feel and think, what their lives inside and outside of school is like, about their relationships and with peers and adults. And because of this, it's really critical to make sure that students know that they can speak to a caring adult at school if, for example, they're having problems. So then they can press the first blue button here that says, yes, I would like to talk to my teacher or principal about the problem that I'm having. And we've also added here the kids' help phone number. So it's also right there for them, that resource if they need it. And if, for example, they do click on that first blue button, an email will be sent to the teacher and the school principal that a student has requested for help. So please follow your school's protocol for following up with these students. We do not, at HELP, we don't need to know what the outcome of the follow-up is. And actually, the only time that HELP will see that there is a student request like this is, for example, if the email fails. So maybe we got the wrong email for you in our system. So that, of course, in that case, we want to make sure that you receive this important email. So we'll follow up with the teacher or the principal. And we have heard in the past from participating teachers and principals that these requests for help are really an opportunity to hear from a student that they may not have been aware of that's having a problem. And this is what the email would look like if ever you receive one, if it has the name of the student and also the background as to why you're receiving this email. Lastly, if you have time, we really love to hear from you. Your feedback is so appreciated, and this is the only way for us to also improve our processes and our resources for future years, for us to know what is working well and what are the things that we can improve on. So if you have time after you're done administering the survey, we'll be happy to get feedback from you. So this link is available in your admin guide as well. So that's it for the actual survey administration steps. If you would like to learn more about the MDI, if you would like to see more MDI resources, what's next in terms of like when you get your MDI data, please visit our website. So that's Discover MDI. Your reports will be coming in spring of 2024, and we'll make sure that there's an email communication around that once it's ready. And I'm just gonna leave this here. So here's our emails, our contact numbers. Best to connect with us on mdi@help.ubc.ca. We all have access to this email. So if you have any questions, if you need any resources, this is where you can connect with us right away. And I think that's it for this webinar. So I just wanted to see if there are any questions or that will be good to share with the group, or any comments.
We don't have that many questions. I hope I've been able to answer some of them as we went along here. But here we go. The questions are coming in. So okay. Class lists will be preloaded, yes, in general, unless you're an independent school. And yes, they will be preloaded by the time you log in to do your class list. We are still just doing some independent school uploads, but all districts we have in our system. How much time does the survey take? I'm just going to go through these really quickly here, Kim.
Yeah.
We say 45 to 90 minutes. Obviously, this depends on the grade and the level of reading. Usually longer for grade 4s. Grade 8s will probably do it in 25 to 30 minutes. If a student are part of 2 districts, will they have 2 logins? No, that should not be possible. They have to only do it in one of the schools they're in. They generally, you know, we have student pens in our system, so we can we know, you know, if a student is entered twice, usually the system will tell us that, unless they come from a different province. So that would not be possible, but maybe Melanie, if this is a very special situation, you can follow up with an email to Kim or myself, and we can help you out. So the MDI is administered in grades 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, but it's not up to us to decide which grade either a school or a district decides to do. So that is generally that's a district decision. So if you're wondering what grade your school is doing, maybe a good idea to check in with either your principal or your district. Yes, that's correct. If one teacher is also going to administer to all the grade 5 classes, just be in touch. That teacher actually can log in once they can see all the classes. They may
yeah.
have to open each and every class separately, but they can definitely administer it all at the same time to all those classes.
Yeah, as long as they have a login in your school, they will have access to those classrooms.
And, you know, if you have any questions that are very student specific, just send us an email. Or call us. We can help you out. I see one question here that's a very good one. If a student is joining our school tomorrow, will they be on your MDI class list? Likely not. But Kim showed you can add the student yourself to a list, or you can call us and have us help you do it. But once you actually tomorrow, when you all get to be able to log in and to see, it's pretty self-explanatory, and you should be able to find either the add button, and then you can just add that information, and the student is now in your class and will be included when you print out the passwords. And in general, if it's your teachers doing the survey administration and you have several teachers in your school and we have their names and emails, they can all have their login and they can each administer the MDI for their classes. Okay, do we have a student-teacher ratio when administering the MDI? No, we don't.
Yeah, no, I don't think we do.
We do not. I mean, I have observed, and Kim and I have actually observed several classrooms, grade 4, depending on your classroom. If you have students that need extra support on a daily basis, it's probably great to have that support in the classroom if you can while you administer the MDI. We have also seen, you know, bigger classrooms in grade 7 and grade 8, all the kids in one gym, administered by, say, the vice principal or the principal. So there are many ways of administering the MDI, and I think we leave this up to you and your expertise, and you know your students best, and maybe how this would work the best in your setting. Maybe not a great answer, but really it can be done in many ways. Depends a little bit on your computer space, or
your computer lab,
computer lab, yeah, and what kind of resources you have. So Nicole is asking if we don't have the teachers' names and emails. Nicole, I don't know what school or district you're from. We may already have this information, but when you log in tomorrow, you should be able to see if we have that information or not. And if we don't, then if you see missing information in terms of teachers or emails, why don't you just send us an email? And we will update as we go along. I'm just going to make sure that if there's more questions or if there's something we have missed. Yeah, fire away. Or if you think of something when you're, tonight when you're cooking dinner or something, then send us an email and we will answer them tomorrow. It's a lot of information. We have a lot of resources. It's a lot of information. My hope is that once you actually get a login and you look at your survey administrator checklist, which really just boils it down to a few points of things you have to do, then it should be a little bit simpler. At least that's our intention. And yes, we will share a recording of this session, 100%, by Monday. I think, right? I think we can promise Monday.
Yeah.
And I think we can stay on for a few more minutes. If anybody has more questions, let us know.